Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock in the morning, Calgary, Alberta, and April the 15th on Thursday morning. One child abuse survivor to another. We're on for half an hour. This is a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and we're looking at the Survivor to Thriver workbook, and we're in step 19 now. So step 19 is, there's 21 steps to the Survivor to Thriver workbook. And so we're really almost finished with the workbook. And it's been a great workbook. I found it very helpful. I'm going to actually go through it on my own time, sometime this spring or summer, and go through it and actually do the steps and work through it. It is a great workbook. I found it at www.ascasupport.org, and you can pull it up there. It's a free download for anybody who wants to go through the workbook, and they really suggest that you read the Safety First chapter first. And that's about almost 34 pages long, I think, 31, 34, somewhere in there. It's a long, huge chapter, Safety First. But it's so important because, if you're a survivor of child abuse, you would know, that we're all in different stages in healing. We're all on a healing journey. And, some of us are a little further along than others, and some have just started. So you have to be really sure where you are in your healing when you do a workbook like this. And the ASCA, the Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, it's a Morris Center program. They have online support. They have, if your own city might host an ASCA meeting, so you can check in your phone book and see if there's a ASCA group in your city who actually meets. And in my city, they don't have one, and so that's unfortunate. But not every city does. But you never know. You could always check it out online or check in your phone book and see if you can find the group and group meetings in your city. And then you can go to the meetings and actually get some real support, some good group support. And it's a great website. You can check that out for yourself. There's online support, peer support, web-based support, just different kinds of ways to get that support. And I really like this workbook. And so, but they did say you want to read the Safety First chapter first. So, yeah, if you're listening to the show this morning and you're just barely starting out your healing journey, survivor of child abuse, you might want to read that chapter first. Turn this show off, go to that website, pull up the workbook, and read that chapter first just to make sure you're safe enough to do the work, because you don't want to be a danger to yourself or anybody else, right? So important. And the ASCA, Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, they actually suggest that, and also that you don't do the workbook on your own. If you haven't come very far in your healing, it's better to have someone with you, because it can trigger memories and bring back all kinds of uncomfortable feelings and emotions. So you really might want to get someone to do this workbook with you if you have a counselor, a therapist, someone like that, or a really good friend who's been with you to support you through this, or group support. You can bring it up in group support and tell people, hey, I'm doing this Survivor to Thriver workbook from the ASCA Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, and I really would like some help with this. Is anybody available to help me kind of go through it? Because you don't want to be on your own if you're not quite ready to do it. So important. So you want to check out that Safety First chapter first. I really believe that's important. And I wouldn't even listen to this show, if you haven't come very far in your healing. We're on step 19, which is really, at this point we are really pretty much, feeling good about things and made sense of things and feeling good about ourselves and really working through it. And so, this is for people who have come through most of their healing journey. So that's why I just think it's so important to make sure that you keep yourself safe, first of all, and then you won't regress in your healing. The whole idea is to move slowly and carefully forward in our own pace. We have to be responsible for our healing, and we have to be responsible for making sure we're not rushing and going too fast or going too slow. We really need to be aware of how we're feeling and how things are going in our lives before we start doing something like this. So I really just ask that you listen at your own discretion and make these decisions for yourself. It's so important. You want to keep yourself safe, and you want to have a slow, steady pace to your healing and not rush it, and then not end up regressing. Right? It's so important. So everyone, listen at your own discretion. This is not a professional show. I don't hold any professional counseling certificates or therapist certificates or anything like that. This show is not meant to replace professional help. I'm just a child abuse survivor who I think that, child abuse is not spoken about enough. We really need more people talking about it. And the issues surrounding child abuse and all the adult survivor issues are definitely not talked about enough. You see lots of blogs out there, but nobody really wants to talk about it, right? Because it's such an uncomfortable topic. And unless you've experienced child abuse, a lot of people who haven't experienced child abuse feel like they're on the outside. They don't quite understand the whole issues surrounding what it would be like to grow up abused as a child, and all the issues and emotional, mental, and different kinds of, and even physical issues that come along with being abused as a child. So they almost probably feel like outsiders in the whole thing. They don't really know how to talk to us. They don't know how to help us, and they don't even know how to reach out to us. So that's why it's so important to reach out, get some help where you can find it, a good therapist, a good counselor, group support, like online group. I belong to a couple of groups. They're online adult survivors of abuse groups, right? And these people, they're so awesome because, they've been there. They know what it's like. Even if they haven't experienced the same things, they can offer support because they understand how hard it is to walk this journey. And they understand how hard it is to survive child abuse, and they know, they want everybody to heal just like themselves. They want everybody to be well and to have a good life, and it's such a very good feeling to know that people care and that they understand what you've kind of been through. Even if they don't get the whole thing, they at least understand the pain and the trauma involved around it, and how hard it is to kind of get over this stuff, right? So it's so important. And, I would just say just keep reaching out, right? So we have about 20 minutes left. If you're a young person under the age of 18, I just ask that you have someone listen to this show with you, because really I fight for child rights. Online child safety is such a huge issue. I did a show last night on that, as well as on Monday night. Internet safety for children and youth, it's so important. There's all kinds of people out there, child sexual predators, who are looking to get a hold of children, and they will do whatever they can to get a hold of them. And so you want to have an adult kind of know what you're doing online and what you're listening to. So important. And this show, is ultimately about, child abuse and stopping child abuse, and so it's really for children, but the material a lot of it is adult oriented. So, you want to make sure you have someone who's older and an adult who can sort of decide whether or not you should be listening to this, and also they can help you with questions if you have questions about the material, because abuse is not talked about very often. Mainly what we see in the paper, in the newspaper, and on the news is just cases of children dying at the hands of their caregivers or parents, or child sexual predators, you know what I mean? Or they're in the hospital with abuse-related injuries, and the parents or caregivers are on trial, and or arrested, or whatever. It's just horrible. Like that's too late. When we see it in the paper like that, on the news, it's just too late. We really need to start talking about this and all the issues surrounding it. And I also have another show, Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is Up to Us, and that's where I just like to cover a lot of topics regarding that issue. And so, yeah, it's just so important. If you're a young person, you want to let somebody know what you're doing online, because you want to keep yourself safe. And you could tell your friends, too, and try to keep them safe, too. And everybody might think, oh, well, you're just being nosy or butting in. But you know what? You could save your life, because there's kids out there dying at the hands of child sexual predators who get a hold of them, who pose as other people. They might pose as a person your own age or close to it, and then they might want to meet you somewhere or get your phone number and get your information, right? So it's very important to become aware of the situation and let an adult know what you're doing online. So important, because your safety is number one. So I just ask that everybody listen at their own discretion, and if the show bothers you, or any of the actual topics of abuse and violence and whatnot bother you, please turn the show off. You have to be responsible for what you listen to, and it's your own discretion. So if it bothers you, just make sure you turn it off, and you won't be hurting my feelings at all. And so we're going to get right on here. We have step 19. That's where we left off yesterday. We finished step 18. Now we're on step 19 of the Survivor to Thriver workbook at www.ascasupport.org, and that's ASCASUPPORT.org. And you can pull this workbook up and go through it with me if you want to. I'm just reading word for word here. I also throw my own stuff in, because it's just like one survivor's look and view on things, right? So, some of it we might actually, kind of sort of feel like we have a connection with, and some of it we might not at all, right? So it just depends on what you've been through and what you experienced as a child, like growing up in an abusive home. Some of it we might be able to relate to, but some maybe not. And some of it I know I don't even relate to, but it's good information and it's good to know. And then other people, if you're supporting someone who is a survivor of child abuse, it's good to know because you can sort of see then why they do what they do and how hard it is for them to walk the road that they're on. And it sort of helps you to learn how to support them, right? So important. So step 19, it says, I hold my own meaning about the abuse that releases me from the legacy of the past. And this is the last, I'm just reading right from the page here, this is the last step that focuses directly on your abuse, but it is nevertheless critical in this long process of putting the abuse behind you once and for all. After all your hard work on the previous 18 steps, your last task is to arrive at your own philosophical understanding of why the abuse happened to you and what it means for you today. After growing up thinking that the abuse occurred because of who you were as a person, you must now replace this with an explanation that accords with what you now know and who you now are. In a sense, this step asks you to reflect on how and why things happen the way they do and what this means for the person who is caught up in events beyond her or his control. You may ask yourself about the nature of good and evil. Why do bad things happen to good people, in this case innocent children? And you may call into question your notions about God or reaffirm your faith in a higher power. Your answers to these questions will be highly individual, as has been the development of your new self. You need to organize the thoughts, feelings, and information you have gathered during your recovery into a consistent and unified concept that will stay with you for the rest of your life, so that when old doubts arise, you can return to it to explain to yourself what the abuse really meant. As such, your explanation will serve to anchor you when you are buffeted by the challenges and opinions that will inevitably be voiced by some around you. So, it's just so important that we gain an understanding ourselves and kind of come to terms with the bigger picture regarding the abuse, why it happened, and really find ways of looking at it, that are really truth to us. And that way we can be, later on down the road, throughout our lives, we can actually, if old doubts and stuff kind of come back, or someone says something to us that just causes feelings to come back about it, the old feelings, we can have that grounding, that anchor to say, no, because this is the way that I understand it, this is the way that I feel about it now. And so this way we don't regress back in our healing, right? We can just stay, strong and healthy and have a great outlook on life and not let this drag us down for the rest of our life, right? So important. And, that's the thing. We have to actually, like they said here, we have to actually have this way of thinking about it in place, and it has to become very solid in our thinking so that later on it's so solid that we don't have to even question it. We just know in our hearts, that's the way it is, that's the way it happened, and whatnot. And I'm kind of there. I'm not quite there, but I'm sort of there. I know exactly kind of why it happened now, and I didn't used to understand the bigger picture, but after I started looking at the bigger picture of why the abuse happened, I started to see really that there was just a whole lot of problems, and it obviously was not my fault, and it wasn't my brothers and sisters' fault either. And, my parents have to take responsibility for it. They never really did. But the thing is, I see now the underlying issues that were there, whereas when I was younger, I never even bothered to take a look to see what the underlying issues were. I was just angry and mad and hurt, And now that I can see the bigger picture, and I've taken that blame and that shame off myself and put it onto the people it actually belongs to, which is my parents, I can actually look at it almost as a third party and say, well, I see why it happened. I understand that, that I didn't deserve it and that I can have a good life. So we have to kind of see it in a different light, right? They have here self-help suggestions and also professional help suggestions from the ASCA. So if we were attending an ASCA meeting, they would probably go through these with us, and you can read them for yourself here. Number one, your understanding of the abuse and its meaning has probably evolved over the course of your recovery. Still, it is important to crystallize this understanding and to acknowledge to yourself that you have resolved this difficult issue. Write about it in your journal to develop your ideas further. And number 2, share your understanding and meaning about your abuse at ASCA meetings and listen to others' explanations and thoughts. You may hear conceptualizations that capture a feeling you had but were unable to put into words. Continue to refine your thinking on this topic. And number 3, have you had any dreams that might reflect this new level of resolution regarding the abuse? Frequently, at major milestones of recovery, survivors have dreams that capture the essence of their understanding in a way that words cannot. And so, yeah, we could write it down in our journal, sort of write down the feelings that we have on it and go back. We're supposed to have been keeping a journal through this whole thing. And we could go back and take a look at previous journal writings and then take a look at what we wrote down about this particular subject and topic. And we could see how far we really came, how far we've actually come. It's really great. And then their professional help suggestions are, number 1, your therapist can be an important sounding board on this complicated philosophical issue. Remember, though, that this step is about what you think about the meaning of the abuse, not what your therapist thinks. And this can be one of the most poignant moments in your therapy as you finally settle on an acceptance of your past and then share your feelings about it with someone else, free of feelings of shame or defensiveness. It's just like sharing your story then, right? I went to public with my story on a blog, just a regular public-facing blog, and I was so happy to do it. I did that like last October, really, mainly November, wrote most of it. And it was so healing. It was such a freeing thing to do. It actually let all this stuff out that needed to come out. I really didn't want to carry it to my grave, and I really think that truth is crucial and vital in every aspect of life. If we're ever going to see this world change, there's got to be some people, believing and standing up in truth, right? So I just thought, I want to be a voice for an advocate for children. I want to be a voice to say stop child abuse, and I want to go do public speaking and whatnot. And I thought, if I'm going to do that, then I have to be honest, and I'm just going to go ahead and do it, whether, regardless of the consequences. I did think about the consequences and what could happen, and the problems that could arise from going public with my story. And I thought about it. I thought, it's so worth it, because that's the whole issue. Everybody wants to keep it silenced. The abusers, of course, want it silenced because they don't want people to know what they did or what they are doing. People that were around at the time that didn't do anything about it, of course they want it silenced, because then they don't have to feel guilty about it, right? They don't have to take on that guilt and say, oh, well, we didn't know what was going on, when actually they did. But their own warped sense of what life should be like is pretty twisted, for children, right? Because there were lots of people in our life that could have stepped in and made some, got us some help, but their own ways of living were so warped that they just thought it was okay that my parents would treat us like that. And so, those people, they have to live with themselves, right? So I went to public with my story, and I really don't care who it hurts, to be honest with you, because I really want people to know, as far as my family goes, I want people to know about the issues surrounding child abuse, what happens to families that don't get the help they need, and what happens to children if they go on to be adults and actually make it and survive. My family is a huge example of that, and it was complete destruction, chaos, and it just destroyed our family. So I don't really care if people that know me and were in my life for my whole life, I don't care what they think, right? They certainly didn't do anything to help us out, and really were protecting the abusers all the time, so, which is my parents. So, I decided, hey, I don't care. Truth is truth. Whether it hurts or not is just too bad. There has to be truth in every situation. And if we're going to change the issue of child abuse, and actually stop it, then, of course, truth is going to have to be number one, because too many lies, too many cover-ups, too many people wanting to see abuse topics and abuse issues pushed under the carpet because abusers don't want to stop what they're doing. So this is the thing. I went public, and I was so happy to do it, because it actually gave me a purpose and a meaning to go on and try to help make a difference in this world, And it also helped me out personally on a personal level, because it freed me from the chains of silence that were, these chains that were just keeping me tied up and shut up, for so many years. And I lost so many friends over it. If I told people about the abuse and stuff, they would ask me, like, if they would say something that happened in their lives, that seemed somewhat abusive, and I would kind of mention some of my stuff, and then, of course, they'd be interested, and then they'd ask me questions, and then after they'd find out, they'd be like, oh, well, you're just too much work, you're you're just too much. You have to, you're too much for me. You need professional help and whatnot. So they would get all the information out of me and then use it to hurt me with it. You know what I mean? So then I started thinking, well, I'm not going to say anything to anybody anymore. You know what I mean? So I just lost so many friends over it. And so, I sat around for 3 years there pretty much just on my own and really depressed and thinking, life is just horrible, right? And then I finally decided to fight to live, and it was a conscious decision. And I said, this is just ridiculous. Why am I sitting around here? I need to be out doing something, raising my voice, and trying to make a difference in this world for children today and stop child abuse, right? So it's so important. It really gave me a focal point, something to focus on that I found was very proactive in my own healing journey and allowed my voice to be heard. And so that was just such a healing thing for me to do. But I also realized that I could lose the rest of the people that are left in my family, which is not very many. My family's pretty much small now. It used to be huge, but now it's just dwindled down. And I thought, hey, I could lose these people. But I thought, we were never a family. They don't support my healing journey. They don't even support the fact that my mother did what she did to me, even though they were there and they saw it and they were there and they didn't try to save me from it either. So they're not supportive of me, and they have never been. So if I lose them, I lose them. I'm not happy about that, right? Because they're not really there for me anyway, right? I told them about the sexual abuse that I suffered, and they just don't care. So, if they're not supporting me, so I don't care what they do, right? They can just buzz off, because I have people in my life right now who are supporting me. And you know what I mean? This is the thing, right? You need to get people in your life who really do care and build these relationships with people who really do care, because my family was never, ever going to come together as a family anyway. And it was so dysfunctional that there's just no way to heal from it. So that's why everybody, unless we all went as a group, which no one will admit that the abuse even happened. So my other two siblings, and my dad, of course, he did admit to it, and he did apologize for it. But the thing is he's schizophrenic, so you just never know whether it's a real apology or not, right? He might have just said it out of being paranoid that he's going to hell or something. I don't really know if he takes real responsibility for it. He doesn't, as far as I know. So the whole thing is I was never going to get reconciliation with the family over this, and I thought, that's okay, because I have it in my heart. I started to take a look at what kind of reconciliation I was ever going to get, and I realized that probably none with my own, family. So I thought, hey, I don't care. I'm going public, and I'm going to get the support where I can, group support, eventually a therapist if I can afford it, a counselor or something, just someone who I can just talk to and just get, some feedback from them and see, if there's other areas in my life I can work on. It's so important just to reach out and get help, right? We do deserve that help. We deserve to have a good life. If you were abused as a child, you certainly didn't deserve it. And, we have to be responsible, really, because no one else will. You know what I mean? They won't, because they won't be able to take that place, right? They can't be our parents. They can't be that person that should have nurtured us in the first place. We have to actually reach out and do this ourselves, learn how to self-nurture and self-soothe, learn how to feel good about ourselves and how to feel good about life. I hated life for so many years, and I hated being on this earth, and I really just didn't want to be here. And now I can say that I have completely changed in that area. I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be able to do something proactive to stop child abuse. You know what I mean? So, we have to learn how to build these confidence and self-esteem and really work through the issues and to move on, to have a healthy life, right? And then find that good support, and not have abusive people in our life, And I'm talking, I'm not talking about people who just maybe disagree with us. I'm talking about people who are literally abusive, so whether it's psychologically, emotionally, physically, whatever, sexually. We cannot allow ourselves to become re-victimized, right? So it's so important as an adult survivor of child abuse to make sure that you keep, really good people in your life who are there to protect you and look out for you and look out for your interests and really want you to heal. And because, it's too often that a lot of adult survivors of child abuse end up going into abusive relationships and friendships even, right? Or, any kind of situation where they end up re-victimized. And, that's just horrible. We've had enough, right? And that's the whole issue. So I surrounded myself with people who support me and actually care about me. And as far as my family goes, I don't really pay too much attention to them. And, I'm still in contact with them except for one person because they're ignoring me. But The rest of my family, which is a couple members, we're still in touch and everything, but I don't care too much about what they're doing or thinking because they've never ever thought properly in their lifetime. To just think that it's okay for my mom to crack my head open with a rolling pin and beat me black and blue with this thing, which she could have killed me. One more crack could have just completely killed me. And they don't say anything about it, even though they know it happened. They don't say, oh, that's horrible, I'm so sorry, it never should have happened, and we should have been protecting you, we should have been looking out for you since Mom had it against you, you know what I mean? My mother was continually abusing me physically, emotionally, verbally, and no one in my family except for my brothers actually really tried to do anything about it. And so, the remaining members, I don't care what they think, and I don't care what they do. They condone the abuse. And there were other people, in our lives, related by marriage who agreed that the abuse was okay and actually encouraged it, because I used to be crying all the time because my mom was very hateful towards me. And these people would say, oh, she's just a brat, somebody should just smack her. So then, of course, my mom would beat me, and then they would think that was cool because I got what I deserved. But I had already just been beaten on just prior to them coming over. And so, I hope that they listen to this show, and I really hope that they start to realize their behavior was wrong. And I don't want an apology. I want them to think about what they're thinking, pull their heads right out of their you-know-what, and start thinking properly. Because, to allow a child to be treated like that is against the law. It's a crime. And really, my mom should have done time, and so should have my dad, right? They should have done time for their abusive behavior, but they didn't, so it's unfortunate. And everyone just kind of, came around to support them and allowed the abuse to happen. And then now there's family members who think, what? There's no possible way. But see, it's because they don't really know the truth, and they don't want to know the truth because they loved my parents. My parents were very good at manipulating people, and they were very good at making other people feel sorry for them and not, looking at the real issues that were going on in the home, right? So because they were mentally sick. So, I don't care. Those people are not in my life anyway, and I really don't care to ever see them again. So they're not supporting me. They know what I'm doing. They know about my book. They know I've gone public. You can pick up my book. It's A Life of Death, The Redemption, and it's at Lulu right now, lulu.com. And it's you can also pick it up from my Blog Talk radio page, my show page, just by scrolling down to the bottom. There's a link there, and you can pick that book up. All proceeds are going to Dream Catchers for Abused Children, every single dime, because I want to stop child abuse. I don't want that money going for my rent or, whatever. I want that money to go to stop child abuse. The book is not all that expensive, $12.95, and it's my story, right? And I'm a voice for my brothers as well, who went to their graves in shame and silence because people just thought they were losers because they did drugs and they were involved in the wrong side of the law. They were always in trouble. One committed suicide at the age of 33, and the other one died of a drug overdose in a shelter here in Calgary, Alberta, at the age of 43. He was almost 44, but he hadn't quite turned 44 yet. And people used to just look down on them. Family members would put them down and say bad things about them. But, they knew the abuse that was going on. They knew how they were treated by my father and my mother, right? And so, but they still put the blame on them. So I hope everybody will buy a copy of my book. I really do. All the proceeds are going to Dream Catchers for Abused Children to get the word out, to stop child abuse. And, I just think it's so important. And it's a great story for survivors, because it allows survivors to see that there is hope, and that we can do it. We just have to keep hanging in there, right? So that's what I say to you. Just keep holding on. Get to support where you can, a therapist, a counselor, group support, a good friend that you trust, So important. And we have about a minute left. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dream Catchers for Abused Children. I'm so happy to stand with them. I say that every single show. And you can check out our website at http://dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. Get all kinds of information on there for survivors as well, but also for people who are looking for what are the signs and symptoms of child abuse, how to report it. There's a free PDF download on there, the Child Abuse Handbook, written by best-selling author and president of Dream Catchers for Abused Children, Donna Shear, and also co-written by author and CEO and founder of Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, Sandra Dawn Potter. They wrote this child abuse handbook. It's a PDF, free download. It's a great handbook to have for all the signs and symptoms, resources and links, how to report child abuse, what to look for. It's just so important. Everybody should have a copy of that, read it, because we could save a child's life, and that's the whole idea, that's the whole point. We want to save children's lives and then save them from a lifetime of adult survivor issues should they survive the abuse. But I think we need to just stop the abuse, right? So everybody take care. I'll be back on tomorrow morning, same time, 6 o'clock a.m. for One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're going to go on to step 20. And my heart's with you. Take care, everybody, and have a great day. Be good to yourself. Take care of yourself, and get some support. Get some help where you can, okay? Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.